All right. So my name is Mitchell, and I'm going to be talking to you about Lightning Network today, which is a scaling solution on top of Bitcoin that promises instant transactions. So let's talk about Bitcoin. Bitcoin is great because it is the first working cryptocurrency that is decentralized, secure, and anonymous. First of its kind. Amazing. However, we all know in this room, big problem with it is that it doesn't scale. And what that means is that beyond a small set of applications and a small group of people using it, it's not able to grow past that. Now, why is that? Two reasons. First, it's slow. So, in general, it takes 10 minutes to confirm a transaction. And if you're in a cafe and you want to get a coffee, you're not going to want to wait 10 minutes for your transaction to be confirmed before you get your coffee. Neither do you want to skip that part, because if you don't, then your transaction will be insecure. The whole point of Bitcoin is this security without a central authority. So this is a big problem. Second of all, it's expensive to use. This is very high fees. At the moment, it's around 15 cents US dollars per transaction, but I'm sure a lot of you know that in December 2017, it went up to $34 per transaction, median transaction fee. The problem with this is not so much that, because 15 cents is not a terrible transaction fee, but the problem with this is not so much that it is expensive, but that it fluctuates so much. You don't know beforehand how much this transaction is going to cost. So the Bitcoin and other cryptocurrency ecosystems have been asking themselves, how do we scale? How do we open up this ecosystem to be used by more than just these small amount of people and the speculators on top of it? Well, in 2015, two very clever people came up with a scaling solution that they call the Lightning Network. White paper, end of 2015, as you see here, which promises instant transactions for Bitcoin. Now, how does it do this? Well, Lightning Network is a network on top of the Bitcoin network. So it's interoperates with Bitcoin, so it talks to the Bitcoin network, but itself is a different network. And the way you would use this as a user is, if you had Bitcoins, you'd be able to put them onto the Lightning Network and then immediately, instantly transact with anyone else on the Lightning Network. And at any point, if you want to withdraw your coins back into Bitcoin, you're able to. So it's kind of like moving up, kind of like taking cash out of an ATM and then being able to spend it all over the place. Or if people are familiar, putting your money from a cold wallet, cold storage, into your hot wallet and then being able to use it. So how do we do this? What is the magic sauce behind this? Well, the fundamental building block of the Lightning Network is called a payment channel. A payment channel can be seen as a virtual money tube between two people. So in this case, we have Alice and Bob, and let's say that Bob is a cafe owner and Alice is someone who wants to get a coffee there. What they can then do is use a payment channel, start one, and then basically be able to perform any amount of transactions between that would change the balance between them. And it works something like this. To open a payment channel, Alice and Bob both lock an amount of Bitcoin into what you could call a Bitcoin smart contract. And this smart contract is a special property in that you have to have a piece of information, technically a transaction, that reflects the state of this channel. And you have to, that piece of information has to be signed by both parties to be able to withdraw that money. So this is maybe the kind of the most subtle part of the whole payment channel story. But basically, two people put their money into this contract and then on the side keep an up-to-date state of what the state of that channel is, what the balances are between them. And at any point, any participant can then take the latest state of that channel and put it on the Bitcoin blockchain to get their Bitcoins back. Once they've done this, when they've opened this payment channel between two people, what you can do is very simply send a transaction. So in this case, let's say Alice goes to the cafe that's owned by Bob and wants to buy a coffee for 0.02 Bitcoin. It's probably a very expensive coffee at this point, but what she can do is she can propose a new channel state. She can propose a new configuration of balances between the two participants in the channel. And she can sign it herself. And once she sends it over to Bob, and once Bob signs that saying, yes, this channel now, I accept your change that I now have 0.02 Bitcoin more than you have. Once that's signed, that basically means that transaction is settled between the two. And basically what you have here is an instant transaction that took place with Bitcoin between two parties. So that's already pretty amazing. And there's very clever security mechanisms to make sure nobody else can cheat the other out of this money, which I won't go into because it's a bit technical. However, there's, of course, a problem with this. Oh, sorry. There's a problem with this. The channel is only between two people. So this works well in the case that Alice, Bob is a cafe in her neighborhood and Alice goes there a lot. But this doesn't work well for most cases, because most cases you won't already have like a rapport with someone. You won't have a channel open with them, and having to open a channel is quite a big upfront cost. So this doesn't work. So let's turn it into a network. And this is the kind of the innovation of Lightning Network, is being able to arrange these payment channels into a network of payments that will allow you to pay anyone else on the network and not just the one you have a channel with. So how does that work? Well, let's take a really simple network of just 3 nodes. Once again, we have Alice and Bob, but in this case, they don't have a channel with each other, but instead Alice has a channel with Carol, and Carol has a channel with Bob. And as you can see here, same story, but then two of them, so 2 channel states with 2 ledgers as to what the state is. And if Alice wants to send a transaction to Bob, all she has to do is propose a new channel state to Carol, and then Carol can propose a new channel state to Bob, basically routing the money through Carol. Now, once again, there's clever, pretty complicated security mechanisms to make sure that in this case, Carol cannot steal the money, because you would naively think that you could get the 0.02 Bitcoin from Alice and not send it through. But there's security mechanisms to make sure that doesn't happen. But basically, you can route your payment through. Once everyone signs the new channel state, you will now have done a payment to Bob through Carol. What's the consequence of this? The consequence of this is scalable instant Bitcoin transactions. So being able to pay anyone on this network instantly for very low fees. On top of that, you also get things like privacy. You can do cross-chain swaps. But the most important thing is that now you do not have to wait 10 minutes to be able to clear a transaction. You can do it instantly, provided that they're in this Lightning network. So what does the future hold? Well, for the future of Lightning Network, we need 2 things. There's technology, so the software being developed, and adoption, which is people using it. For technology, just a month ago, Lightning Network was launched into the mainnet of Bitcoin. So now it's actively being tested on the mainnet, and it's very much still in alpha stage, but there's a lot of people working on that. There's a lot of people working on wallets for phones, for desktop, for web, all these things. There's a lot of development going on right now, just started. Secondly, adoption. That's, of course, always a complicated situation, but you would imagine that a case like what the lady from Quora was talking about with developing countries that have a real problem with financial institutions, Venezuela with their distrust in the government's currency, or just merchants that for some reason don't have a payment platform, or people that want to store value that's not currency, whatever reason, there have to be some people that start using this. But the fact is that it's a network. So the network effects will mean that once you have some usage there, the network will feed back on itself and start growing really fast. Now, there's an economic theorem that says that a currency or a unit of account is worth more the more it moves around. So the velocity of money relates to the value of this currency. And if Lightning Network does what it proposes and sets out to do, then this also actually means that you might see a great rise in the price of Bitcoin, which is very exciting. Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, in the example you had from Alice sending money to Bob through Carol.
Yeah.
What's the incentive for Carol to sign the message?
That's a really good question. The Lightning Network has set itself up in a way that people that route payments can get a very small fee for doing that. So you can set up like a node in the middle of all the net, like be a hub, and get quite a bit of money for that, maybe like a miner would, but then probably cheaper.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so in this example, if Bob is not online, how can it be instant?
I mean, Bob, yes, does have to sign this, but I mean, that has to kind of happen anyway. I mean, not in Bitcoin's case, but in most cases, what you would do is have like a machine that doesn't necessarily have to be online, but it has to be able to sign something. And so you'd kind of propose a new, or say you have to send a payment to this and sign it. Does that make sense?
So once Alice has sent that transaction, how does she refill her balance?
So the Lightning Network does have a way of doing that. I don't know the details, but they have thought of you can like top up your account on Lightning Network. Worst case, you could open another channel with a new person or the same person, right?
Does it require a new Bitcoin transaction?
Yeah, it does.
But then how do you tackle the fee issue?
Sorry?
How do you tackle the fee issue then? Because
well, yeah, so it might cost 15 cents, what the transaction fee is right now, or more as it gets used more, but it might cost that to open a channel, right? But that is kind of akin to opening a bank account.
No, I get that, but like when you want to refill the balance,
yeah,
you would have to do another transaction. Or
yeah, or buy it somehow from someone on the network to send it through to you through the network.
Yeah, okay.
Right, thank you.